We stand, each of us, at a perpetual crossroads. Not a single intersection on a dusty road, but a continuous, unfolding junction of moments where every decision branches into 1,000 possible futures. To the left lies a path shrouded in fog, slick with the dew of caution. It promises safety, shelter from the storm, but its end is obscured. To the right lies a path that glitters with a distant, almost blinding light. We hear echoes of celebration and success from that direction, a siren's call of opportunity. But the path itself is narrow, perched on a cliff's edge, with a sheer drop into the abyss. This is the fundamental dilemma of a life lived with consequence. We are caught in a constant gravitational tug-of-war between two of the most powerful forces that shape human behavior, especially in the realms of finance, career, and personal growth. On one side, we have the fear of ruin. This is the cold, primal terror of losing everything. It's the voice that whispers of bankruptcy, of catastrophic failure, of being cast out of the game of life with no way to get back in. It is the instinct for survival, sharpened over millennia. On the other side, we have its modern, hyper-caffeinated cousin, the fear of missing out, or FOMO. This is the hot, anxious feeling that somewhere, someone else is seizing an opportunity that we are letting slip through our fingers. It's the itch of seeing others succeed wildly and feeling a desperate urge to join the rush before the door closes forever. It is the instinct for advancement, for social standing, for a better place in the tribe. The fear of ruin commands us to build walls. The fear of missing out urges us to charge the battlefield. One is a philosophy of defense. The other is a philosophy of offense. And in the space between these two poles, we must navigate our lives. The great tragedy is that we are rarely taught how to reconcile them both. We often lurch from one extreme to the other, playing far too safe when we should be bold, and acting with reckless abandon when we should be prudent. The result is a life of either quiet regret or spectacular flameout. But what if there is a third way? A way to honor the wisdom of both fears, to build a system that protects us from catastrophe while still allowing us to capture the extraordinary. That is the journey we will embark on today, to dissect these two powerful forces and forge a mental model for navigating the essential risks of a meaningful life. First, let us turn to the more ancient and visceral of the two fears, the fear of ruin. To understand its power, we must understand that ruin is not merely a setback. It is not a 10% market correction or a failed business venture from which you can recover. Ruin is game over. It is an irreversible event that removes you from the field of play. It is the debt you can never repay, the reputational damage from which you can never recover, the loss so total that you lack the capital, financial, emotional, or social, to ever try again. The financial writer Morgan Housel notes that the most powerful force in finance isn't growth or dividends, it's compounding, the slow, patient accumulation of gains over a long period of time. But compounding has one mortal enemy: interruption. You cannot earn returns on money that has vanished. Therefore, the single most important rule of building wealth, or indeed a life of any substance, is not about maximizing the upside. It is about ensuring your own survival so that you can stay in the game long enough for the upside to find you. Our brains are hardwired for this. The work of psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky on prospect theory revealed a profound asymmetry in our perception of gains and losses. The pain of losing $100 is psychologically far more potent than the pleasure of gaining $100. This is loss aversion, an evolutionary feature, not a bug. For our ancestors on the savanna, missing out on a potential berry patch was a minor inconvenience. Misidentifying a predator and becoming its meal was a catastrophic, game-ending error. The consequences were not symmetrical. Evolution selected for the organisms that were terrified of ruin. This fear manifests in our lives as the prudent and often wise voice of caution. It's the voice that tells you to buy insurance, to build an emergency fund, to diversify your investments, to avoid taking on too much debt. It is the foundation upon which any sustainable success is built. Imagine you are planting a sapling. Your goal is for it to grow into a mighty oak tree over many decades. The most important thing is not to find the most powerful fertilizer or the most exotic pruning technique. The most important thing is to protect the sapling from the axe. You must ensure it is not dug up, snapped in a storm, or eaten. You must avoid ruin. Only then can the slow, miraculous magic of compounding, sun, water, and time do its work. When we ignore the fear of ruin, we build our houses on sand. We might use leverage to amplify our gains, believing we have a foolproof system. But we failed to account for the 1-in-100-year storm, the black swan event that the system never anticipated. When that storm hits, the leverage that magnified our gains now magnifies our losses, and we are wiped out. The stories of financial history are littered with the ghosts of brilliant minds who made fortunes only to lose them and more because they failed to respect the possibility of total failure. They were so focused on winning the next battle that they lost the entire war in a single afternoon. The fear of ruin, when listened to, is not cowardice. It is the wisdom of the long-term survivor. But a life governed solely by this fear becomes a fortress, and a fortress can quickly become a prison. If we spend our entire existence building walls to keep out danger, we also wall ourselves off from opportunity. And this is where the second great force comes into play: the fear of missing out. FOMO is a distinctly modern affliction, amplified to an unbearable degree by the architecture of our digital lives. While the fear of ruin is an internal primal whisper about survival, FOMO is an external social scream about relative status. We are social animals, and our sense of well-being is not absolute. It is measured against the perceived well-being of our peers. For most of human history, our peer group was a small tribe of 150 people. Today, our peer group is a curated feed of 7 billion people, where every success, every luxury vacation, every investment that went to the moon is broadcast in high definition, while the failures, the struggles, and the crushing debts are edited out. This creates a psychological pressure cooker. We see a friend from college post about their early retirement funded by a cryptocurrency they bought on a whim. We see a headline about a tech stock that has created a new generation of millionaires. We see a movement, a trend, a gold rush, and the anxiety becomes palpable. The logic of our own patient, prudent plan suddenly feels foolish, slow, and antiquated. The fear of missing out hijacks our rational brain and replaces it with a desperate, childlike urge not to be left behind. The French philosopher René Girard spoke of mimetic desire, the idea that we don't desire things in and of themselves, we desire them because other people desire them. Our desires are copied, imitated. FOMO is mimetic desire on a global, instantaneous scale.
When we see a crowd rushing towards a particular investment or opportunity, our instinct is not to ask, "Is this a good idea?" but rather, "What do they know that I don't?" We assume the crowd possesses a wisdom we lack, and we feel an overwhelming urge to join them, lest we be the only ones left standing when the ship of fortune sails. The danger, of course, is that FOMO is the enemy of sound judgment. It compels us to buy high when assets are popular and expensive, and sell low when sentiment turns and panic sets in. It makes us abandon carefully constructed plans in favor of chasing speculative bubbles. It substitutes the hard work of due diligence with the easy shortcut of social proof. In essence, the unmanaged fear of missing out is often the direct cause of the very thing we should fear most: ruin. The investor who kiles into a meme stock at its peak because of FOMO is the same one who is forced to sell at a 90% loss, experiencing a ruinous event. The two fears are not just opposites, they are locked in a deadly dance. And so we find ourselves caught in the cross-currents. If we only listen to the fear of ruin, we may live a life of perfect safety, but also one of profound opportunity cost. We will miss the technological revolutions, the compounding growth of markets, the asymmetric bet that could have fundamentally changed our lives for the better. We will have protected our sapling from the axe, but we will have planted it in a dark basement where it can never grow. If we only listen to the fear of missing out, we live a life of frantic, anxious activity. We chase every trend, jump on every bandwagon, and stretch our resources to their breaking point. We are building a rocket ship without any safety checks. It may soar for a moment, providing a spectacular view, but it is statistically destined to explode, leaving nothing but wreckage. How then do we solve this puzzle? The answer is not to choose one fear over the other, nor is it to find a tepid compromise in the middle. The answer is to build a system that respects both. It is to create a structure for your life and your finances that draws a hard, bright line between the two, allowing you to be deeply conservative and audaciously opportunistic at the same time. The key to this lies in understanding the concept of asymmetry. An asymmetric opportunity is one where the potential upside is vastly greater than the potential downside. This is the secret of the world's most effective risk-takers. They do not take risks in the conventional sense of a 50-50 coin flip. Instead, they structure their affairs to benefit from positive asymmetry. Let us construct a mental model for this. Imagine your financial life, your career, your entire portfolio of efforts as being divided into two distinct buckets. We will call them the fortress and the laboratory. The fortress is where you honor the fear of ruin. This bucket contains the vast majority of your assets and energy, perhaps 90 or 95%. The rule of the fortress is simple: do not lose. This is your survival capital. Here, you are relentlessly conservative. This is your diversified portfolio of low-cost index funds, your emergency savings, your home equity, your insurance policies. You are not trying to get rich in the fortress. You are simply trying to ensure you are never poor. You are planting your oak tree in fertile soil and protecting it from every conceivable axe. You let the slow, reliable engine of time and compounding do its work. You do not touch the fortress for speculative ventures. You do not borrow against it to chase a hot tip. Its purpose is to guarantee your survival and participation in the long-term upward drift of the global economy. This part of your life is boring, and it should be. It is the bulwark against ruin. Now we turn to the laboratory. This is where you address and channel the fear of missing out. This bucket contains a small, carefully defined portion of your assets, the remaining 5 or 10%. The rule of the laboratory is equally simple. You must be prepared for everything in this bucket to go to zero. This is your experimental capital. This is money you can afford to lose completely without it having any material impact on your quality of life or your long-term plan. The fortress ensures this. Within the laboratory, you are free to be aggressive, curious, and experimental. This is where you can take your asymmetric bets. You might invest in a handful of early-stage startups. You might buy a small amount of a volatile new asset class. You might spend the money on a course to learn a new skill that has a small chance of revolutionizing your career. The nature of these bets is that their downside is capped at 100%, the amount you invested. You can only lose what you put in. But their upside is uncapped. It could be 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times your initial investment. One successful experiment in the laboratory can have a transformative effect on your entire financial life, while a dozen failures are nothing more than the cost of tuition. There are small, recoverable setbacks that do not threaten the integrity of your fortress. This two-bucket system performs a kind of psychological alchemy. It defangs both fears by giving them their proper domain. When you feel the pull of FOMO because a new technology is soaring, you don't have to wrestle with the decision to go all in. You simply ask, do I have a small allocation in my laboratory bucket for this? If you do, you can participate with a clear head, knowing your survival is not on the line. If you don't, you can observe without anxiety, knowing your system is designed for the long run. FOMO is transformed from a source of crippling anxiety into a source of interesting, low-stakes experiments. Simultaneously, the fortress allows the fear of ruin to do its most important work, protecting your foundation. You can sleep at night even if your experimental bets are collapsing, because you know that 95% of your wealth is secure, chugging along, compounding quietly. You have made ruin an impossibility, short of a complete societal collapse. You are durable. This model extends beyond finance. In your career, your fortress might be your stable, reliable job that pays the bills and funds your retirement. Your laboratory might be the side project you work on during evenings and weekends, the book you're writing, the small business you're incubating. The side project has an asymmetric payoff. The downside is a few hundred hours of your time, but the upside could be a new career path, financial independence, or immense personal fulfillment. Your main job protects you from the ruin of unemployment, while your side project allows you to explore opportunities for exponential growth. The goal then is not to eliminate risk. A life without risk is a life without growth, a life unlived. The goal is to domesticate risk. It is to separate the risks that can kill you from the risks that can make you. We must be paranoid about the first and embrace the second. The great mistake is confusing the two, applying fortress logic to laboratory opportunities leading to inaction and regret, or applying laboratory logic to our fortress leading to speculation and ruin. Ultimately, navigating these two great fears is a philosophical act. It requires us to look beyond the noise of the daily market fluctuations and the curated highlight reels of our peers. It demands that we define what the game is for ourselves. Is it a frantic race to accumulate more than the person next to us? Or is it a long, patient process of building a resilient and meaningful life? A life where we have the freedom to learn, to grow, and to contribute. The Stoic philosophers would remind us that the fears themselves, of ruin and of missing out, are products of our own minds. They are stories we tell ourselves about the future, a future we cannot control. What we can control is the system we design in the present. We can control the decision to build a fortress. We can control the decision to allocate a small fixed amount to a laboratory. We can focus on our process, not on the chaotic and unpredictable outcomes. A well-lived life is not one that avoids all storms. It is one that has built a vessel strong enough to weather any tempest, while still having the sails and the courage to explore new horizons when the winds are fair. By understanding the dance between the fear of ruin and the fear of missing out, we can become that vessel's wise captain. We can build a foundation that is unbreakable, and upon that foundation, we can give ourselves the permission to reach for the extraordinary. we can honor our primal need for safety without sacrificing our profound human desire for growth. And in that balance, we find not only financial security, but a deeper and more durable form of peace.